Hey, hi! Welcome to Someone Else's Movie, the original podcast where an actor, writer, director, or nebulous industry figure gives a little love to a movie they didn't make. I'm Norm Wilner, I'm a programmer at TIFF now, and this is the other thing I do. My guest this week is Vanessa Matsui, an actor, writer, producer, and director who you may recognize from shows like Ghost BFF, which she also created, or Lost Girl, Seed, Schitt's Creek, The Girlfriend Experience, The Hot Zone, or Letterkenny. Her first feature, Midnight at the Paradise, is an ensemble drama starring Leanne Balaban, Alan Hawko, Emma Ferreira, Kenneth Welsh, and Kate Trotter as couples dealing with various levels of relationship fatigue. It's having a one-night-only Toronto premiere this Friday, April 21st at the Paradise Cinema, of course, and if you're in town, you should check it out. Vanessa picked Good Luck to You, Leo Grande, the Australian filmmaker Sophie Hyde's two-hander about a newly retired English schoolteacher, played by Emma Thompson, who hires a sex worker, played by Daryl McCormack, to give her the pleasure she feels she's missed out on in her life. Over the course of several meetings, we see who these people are and what they come to mean to one another. It's not quite what you think it will be. That's the beauty of it. This is Someone Else's Movie.
Okay, so I saw it for the first time just a few weeks ago, and it was one of those nights where I was like, I just put my kid to bed. I wasn't going to really watch a full movie, and I clicked on it thinking I was going to just go on social media and ignore the film and it would just play in the background until I'm ready to go to bed. And it just captivated me in a way that a film hasn't done in a very long time. I ended up watching the whole thing in one sitting, which is kind of rare for me because I'm a mom with young kids, lots of things happen when I'm at home. And I just thought it really moved me. I had never seen a film. I feel like this phrase is overused, but this love letter to the female body and the appreciation of the aging body. I loved it. And I thought, and especially after coming from directing a feature for the first time, that is a challenging movie to make work. And so I found myself really watching it as a filmmaker. And maybe that's one of the first times that I've really been watching a film as a filmmaker. And I had to I rewatched it in preparation of this. And I was like, yeah, wow. What was the camera language that she was using? Anyway, I found myself just really captivated by it. I thought the performances were incredible. I loved the message and the story and how inventive to make it essentially a two-hander in one room be that compelling and interesting.
Yeah, it's you mentioned the camera language and it's really interesting that they try not to repeat shots. They, given the restrictions that they've set for themselves, this could have been a really kind of film play version of it, but even the choices of which sequence to shoot with mild handheld work and which sequence to do sort of a formal frame with, it's really clever. And absolutely, yeah, and of course, I thought, honestly, I have to admit, when I heard about it at Sundance, and I didn't see it until it came out to streaming, but when I heard about it, it sounded kind of schematic, right? This sounds like a not a prefabricated drama exactly, but one where all the signposts are pretty evident and the casting does half the work. And that's technically true, right? Because Emma Thompson is remarkable.
It's remarkable in it. Yeah.
But it doesn't pander, right? It doesn't play into the version of itself. This is a phrase I find myself using a lot lately, and I kind of hate that I keep coming back to it, but it works. There is a version of this movie that is blank, 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 and it's always the disappointing version. There's an easier way to tell this story. And I don't say that about a lot of movies because they are the easy way. And this one just, it won't let people out of frame. It won't release the actors or the characters from the traps that they've built for themselves, which I find really interesting.
Yes. Oh, yeah. 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 I hadn't even thought about it that way. Exactly. And it's and it also really felt the whole film felt like a dance to me. Mm-hmm. It felt like the two of them, and even just the way that the like both opening frames on the two actors, and then how you're bringing us in together. Anyway, um, I found it very, very interesting. And it's funny too, because how I remembered the film is actually a little different than when I rewatched it
Oh,
just
yeah.
last night.
Okay.
I thought that there were absolutely no background players or no other actors in the movie except for the waitress. Like that's how I had remembered it. And I remember thinking, I was like, oh, that was probably like some weird, COVID rule. Like they probably shot this during pandemic and they just couldn't get BG. But as I was thinking about it, I was thinking what a clever way of showing like how isolated these two people are. And then the only time that they're making connection, it eventually becomes with the two of them. And anyway, when I rewatched it, I'm like, oh no, there's some BG people, but they're far away and they're still removed. So I think, my memory of what it was is probably like, a little accurate, and how the filmmaker intended it to feel, which was they were alone.
Yeah, they're building their own world, more or less. I mean, the relationship is the only thing the film is interested in, and how they're affected by it. Like there's the other two servers in the cafe at the end, and there's the server in Leo's coffee shop at the very beginning, right?
Exactly. And actually, that's really interesting that both people are servers.
Everyone else is working.
Yeah. And that he's also like a server in a way. Anyway, that's cool.
It's sly, right? Like sly is usually a word that I will use for something that is kind of knowing and knowingly playing a bit on the audience. But this isn't that exactly. This is just a movie that's, the world is so well constructed that when you turn around later, it's just like, oh no, that was deliberate. Like it's all so conscious and thought through and thrown away, because it doesn't really matter that the only other people they interact with are servers, because that's just the world everybody lives in, with the exception of Nancy, I suppose, who is, technically in charge because she's always demanding something from someone transactionally, even though she's completely out of control in her own life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's so English. Like it is so English. I have married into an English family and had.
Oh, you have? Okay.
Yeah, a little more experience of that culture than I would have otherwise. And for 20 years now, I've been learning language. Like this, the passive aggressiveness is an art among the citizens of the United Kingdom. That here I am at best a dilettante, and catching like the subtle digs and hesitations you almost never see, and it's all over Thompson's performance, is someone who is passive aggressive with herself, and she's not doing it to Leo. She is diminishing herself in almost every interaction.
Oh yeah. Yes.
And laughing it off and sort of shrugging it off, but she never stops, and it's just devastating. Like just the cumulative power of that.
There's a moment that I totally love that she nails, obviously, because she's like asking him, who's the oldest person you've ever had to have sex with? And he's like 82. And so she's like, okay, wait, I'm starting to feel a little better now. So how do you do it? Like how? And he's like, well, I find something beautiful about everybody that I'm with. And then she's like, okay, well, what is my thing that you're going to hold on to with all your might and not let go? And I was like, oh, it is so funny. She is so, she's so hard on herself.
Yeah, there's self-deprecating, and then there's this. Like it's just an outpouring of self-loathing, obviously, that the character's been walking around with, but it's so incongruous is not the right word. Like it is just so strange to see that coming out of Emma Thompson, who has always been an incredible actor and effortlessly able to inhabit people who are not happy with themselves or not uncomfortable with themselves. But I think, and it's clearly deliberate on the film's part, as she has aged, she has somehow become more honest as a performer. And she's one of the handful of people who you can say that about. And it's not just women, it's not just English women. Like it's a thing that she possesses, where the truth just keeps coming out of her as a performer.
Apparently, so I don't know if you've read it, there's a New York, I think it's New Yorker, there's a New Yorker article about her, and it's really, I think it just recently came out.
No, I
It's
haven't
really
seen it.
interesting. Like, she lives in the same neighborhood that she grew up in. She talks about how all her friends are still like, they're not famous people. They're her friends that she's known forever. So she's like, I have a lot of people around me that never let me get, like
Right.
too big for my britches or whatever. So I think that there is an, you know, I think it's very easy once you are rich and famous to enter a bubble and be so completely removed from anything that's real. And maybe part of her, her honesty comes from the place where she is like kind of keeping it honest in her life and not letting herself sort of get dragged into that bubble world. And it pays off in her art for sure.
Yeah, she doesn't have a false note anywhere in the movie, and it's a performance too that could have been, or a character that could have been pushed into caricature. Like, she could have just
Totally.
been a nervous. I mean, it's to the point where you almost believe, or I almost believed in the around the 90-minute mark, that this person has just completely invented this persona, because there's no way there's someone as convenient as a 60-year-old repressed English school teacher whose husband has just died. I mean, it just sounds too good to be true, the same way Leo's story is ultimately not too good to be true, but just too good, full stop. And then it's validated by the waitress who comes up to her, by the server she used to teach. And I was actually surprised at that moment. It's like, oh, it's all real. Okay, cool. Because I guess I've just trained myself to expect one more twist. Because
Interesting.
otherwise, why are they having the scene? Why is there a coda to this film? And then, of course, it turns out that's the whole point of the movie, is to get them to that last meeting. It's really clever.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I think for me, and I've been giving a lot of thought to it, like as someone like, like I've had a baby, so my body is different and
Sure.
getting older. And also, my whole life I've been an actress. And so have maybe been at some like, unhealthy, uh, been in unhealthy situations in the way that my body's been scrutinized. And I think just in general, like how women are,
Yeah, yeah.
it's just so trained to like despise their bodies. And this movie really like it affected me in a really profound level. And I was like, like I've sort of been thinking about my body and in just in a really different way. And I think that's very rare that, at this old, not that I'm super old, but, for something to really, not that I didn't know that, like unrealistic body image is all bad. Like, of course, like we all know those things, but I think it's like, I've never felt something quite dive like under my skin in quite the same way, to actually have a paradigm shift regarding yeah, anyway.
Yeah. Well, I'm thinking about all the other films recently, in the last 15 years or so, I guess, that have dealt with aging sexuality, male or female. And there's almost inevitably some level of grotesquerie to them that is then presented as truth, right? Like,
Mhm.
a close up of a waddle on a neck, or somebody's sagging skin. Or there was, oh God, what was it? There was a German film I saw at Cannes the one time I was there, Cloud Nine, German or Austrian, I think it might have been Austrian, which is about an affair between two people in their 60s. And
Okay.
they're, they look like people in their 60s, and that's fine, but the camera just goes in on particularly I mean, it opens with a scene that I think is deliberately supposed to be off-putting, of bodies slapping together. It's it's all in the sound mix and the way it's presented. It's the aesthetic
Okay.
that the filmmaker chooses. And I just remember thinking, if that's the only point you have, like if the point is that you should stop thinking of these people as gross looking and see them as beautiful and in love, it's like, okay, I get that, but what's the next 90 minutes of your movie about? Where
Mm.
where are we going with this? And there's no sensationalism, because it's just not that movie. I mean, if anything, David McCormack is sexualized deliberately by the film. Washboard abs and incredible physical. How does she describe him? She early on, she says at one point that he's just.
She's like, you're like a model.
Yeah, but she throws it away in a way that again tells us that she doesn't think she deserves him, which turns the focus back onto her and lets us see him through her eyes. So it's okay that he is preposterously good looking in the way that movie people are, but I think because we start with him, it feels more honest that way. Because we don't open with her, it opens on him.
Oh yeah,
and
right. Yes,
it's just destabilizing enough that it just feels like a movie character and another movie character meeting. And because we don't start with, established movie star Emma Thompson, we start with this younger character actor who doesn't have a persona behind him just yet. It makes it feel like this is not the kind of film where your expectations will be met and where everything will be safe and nice.
Yeah. And I mean, maybe that's also why I was so drawn into it, because it was not what I was expecting. You're right. At every turn, it was like, whoa, what is this? Interesting. I kept going. Didn't go to my phone. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. Were you familiar with the director's work before this? Is this the first one of hers that you've seen?
I know nothing about any of these people except for Emma Thompson. And I've always been a big fan of Emma Thompson because, all the things that we've said, she's so brilliant, but also she worked. So Leanne Balaban, who's the star of Midnight of the Paradise, Leanne worked with Emma on Last Chance Harvey.
Right, of course.
And had nothing but like Emma Thompson actually is everything that we think she is. She's fabulous and wonderful and was somewhat of a mentor to Leanne. Leanne and I made this interactive website at the dawn of the internet, all about getting your first period. And Emma Thompson contributed to it. She was so supportive of us, in Montreal working with the National Film Board. And I've always been a really big fan. And it's funny too, because as soon as I saw this film, I texted Leanne. I was like, have you watched, nobody has seen this movie. That's what also blows my mind. Leanne hadn't seen it. She's like, I've never even heard of it. And I'm like, how have you not heard of Good Luck to Leo Grande? You're going to love it. You must watch it.
I wonder if it's just the streaming trap, or because it wasn't hugely acclaimed at Sundance other than a couple of good critical reviews, and then it just went straight into streaming. There was no theatrical release, just like everything else, right?
And I feel like that is the kind of film I would have loved to see in theaters. And I also feel in a way that it kind of deserved a theater, because I think if you're just watching it at home, also, I think it was the year that Sundance had to close because of Omicron. So it was last minute. Yeah. The whole thing didn't end up happening live. In person. So then I think it just kind of suffered through that. And then it never got theatrical, even though I feel like that movie would have just done really well theatrical. But anyway.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I could absolutely. Well, I could see us screening it at the Lightbox for a run anyway. Certainly it's a small, quiet film that would play really well in a Cinematheque sort of situation. And I didn't realize you were involved with the period project, which the name of which is escaping me. But
Cranky Town.
That's the one. Yeah. Because Leanne and I talked about it when she did press for, I guess it was The Grand Seduction was the last time.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. No, I'm the co-creator with Leanne. That's how nice. We saw it. Actually, we met, we originally met doing improv, Sunday night improv at Theatre St. Catherine. And we just really got along. It turned out that we lived about a block away from each other. So we were always doing self-tapes together. And Leanne's actually the one who who introduced me to Bill, who's the writer and producer of Midnight at the Paradise. And that's sort of how this whole thing started. But yeah, Leanne and I this will be our second really big artistic collaboration, which is, really exciting.
That's great. And Midnight at the Paradise is such a different project too. And we can get back to Good Luck to You, Leo Grande, but I keep saying Leo Grande.
I don't know what it is. Is it Leo? I don't know.
I want to say he uses both at one point or another, like almost like it's a tell, but I'm not sure that's right. I think I might just be misremembering it.
Yeah.
But yeah, the idea of depicting true intimacy on film, it's tricky, right? Like it's the kind of thing where even if as we see in the film, it's all about camera placement. Like you have to trust, the actors have to trust the camera, the actors have to trust each other. I've seen hundreds of movies, if not thousands at this point, where it's just not quite right. And here you just get quiet and pulled in, and it's not about whether they're going to have sex or even touch, right? Like it's about whether they'll connect.
Exactly. Because they even have sex in like that first act, and that's not even the thing. I love that you just touched on that, because I think the true intimacy, it is so well accomplished. And I don't know. I mean, part of it is the camera work, and it's also like, because it's every time that Emma they get really close to true intimacy, and she's the one that breaks it. Like either there's the dance scene where they're so getting into it, and then of course her daughter calls, and she's the one that has to block it off. And then when she's almost overcome with lust, and it is, it's done so well that like true intimacy and like almost the touching, and then the breakaway, so you're teased every time. It's cool.
Hey, it's Norm, interrupting my own show to bring you up to speed on Shiny Things, my twice-weekly newsletter about physical media, culture, and the odd streaming project. Last week, I wrote about the Cohen Media Group's Jacques Rivette restorations, Brandon Cronenberg's Infinity Pool, and Shout Factory's 4K editions of two 80s masterpieces, Midnight Run and Streets of Fire. Yes, really. Sign up for a 14-day free trial at shiny-things.ghost.io or find a link at the Semcast Twitter account. Look, I have to write about movies. It's obviously a pathology. Come check it out. And it's so difficult to talk about, right? Like you just end up stammering and trying to find the right words because it's something that's electric. The chemistry of it just can't be explained. It either works or it doesn't. And, the camera loves them both. The actors are both incredibly comfortable with having the camera right up their noses, like practically. It's just these close-ups of faces and necks and shoulders and bodies moving together without meshing, like without going to straight up sex. It's about the consideration, the possibility, the romance of romance. It's so weird and metaphorical and hard to phrase other than, to use terms that don't really do it justice, like an emotion. People talk about an emotional affair, but that completely leaves out the possibility of physical attraction, and it's usually part of it, right? Like it's usually something to do with the want, the need, not just the conversation and the confidence that happens where you start. I mean, even like the micro adjustments in Thompson's performance from sequence to sequence.
Yes,
the way she calibrates Nancy's comfort level, but also her hesitation, because as it gets more serious, she retreats further. So she's willing to spend time with Leo. And she loses the repulsion and the terror from the first one. But in the second one, there's a different kind of terror, because what if it actually leads somewhere this time? And what if something happens? And by the third one, we realize she's considering a relationship, or at least reaching out to him beyond that, which he finds repulsive.
Exactly.
And so the dynamic just keeps shifting in a way that isn't mechanical, but is really, really interesting. Because I mean, if you look back on it, there's a really clear line about which direction both of these characters are moving in and how it works and how it meshes. But in the moment, it feels raw and human and unpredictable, which is kind of amazing, because effectively it's a film play and it should be more schematic, but they find a way to break it. This is why I was asking if you were familiar with Sophie Hyde's work, because she made a film 10 years ago now, maybe, called 52 Tuesdays.
Okay, yeah, I saw it on IMDb. No, I'm not familiar with it.
I saw it, maybe it was at TIFF Next Wave, but I saw it in a festival, or it was actually, no, it was probably Inside Out. And it's about a teenage girl who's one of her parents is transitioning.
Okay.
And she cannot handle it. I think it's a line of the way she expresses it is, my mom is becoming my dad and I can't understand it.
Okay.
And it's so, and this is 10 years ago, before trans narratives were really,
I was just going to say,
right around the time of Dallas Buyers Club, which handles it in a completely different way.
Okay.
And it is so sensitive and so calm and human and beautiful that at the time it felt like someone almost trying too hard to make an art film out of a human story. I think I might have even knocked it for that, but looking back at it, it's just like, no, it's just refusing to not make an art film because the story is important. And why wouldn't you? Like, the transness wasn't the transness wasn't the function of the story. That wasn't the hook.
Okay.
The hook is about the daughter and what she's doing as a teenager and how she's figuring herself out and how this other thing is happening that she can't process. But when you're a teenager, you think, everything is felt so profoundly, but you also can't imagine anybody else feeling anything so profoundly.
Totally. Yes. Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Which as an adult, you look back on and it's embarrassing, but
yeah.
the film perfectly captures that.
Interesting.
In the same way it captures Nancy's panic.
Yeah.
Like it's all about anxiety. And she is so good at, Sophie Hyde is so good at capturing that in a way that's almost unbearable.
Yes. I'm definitely going to check out this film. Yeah, I'm seeing it on IMDb right now, 52 Tuesdays.
Yeah, it's out there somewhere.
Wow, I'm excited.
Yeah.
And it looks like she just stayed in Australia. It's so interesting because she's so talented. Anyway, yeah.
Yeah, I think she just moves around. She goes where the work is, as far as I can tell, because Good Luck was written by an English comedian, which I didn't realize.
I was just looking that up too, who is also, it seems like this sketch comedian, like she's also, like she has like 50 credits as an actress. And I'm like, what? Is this why I liked the movie so much? It was written by an actress. But yeah, there's, more to it than that. Yeah, what an interesting collaboration.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, it makes sense that it would be written by an actor, though, because it's all about revelation, right? Like it's all about revealing yourself to someone and performance. And it's the, like all the tension comes from whether or not someone is going to be honest, not whether or not someone's going to get laid.
Yes. Yeah. And also it's like a dream script for any actor to get. Like if this fell on your desk, you'd be like, yeah, no, I want to do this. This is basically like doing a play. Like the scene work is just so rich. I'm very curious how long they rehearsed for. And I don't know.
Yeah, I would have to assume there was some. I mean, because this would have been shot during the pandemic. Like this is 2021, right? So yeah. It's a perfect pandemic film because it doesn't feel like one. The hotel room's a great excuse for it.
Exactly. Yeah, it is a perfect pandemic film. And I wonder if, there's no, I'm assuming there was at least a week of rehearsals. There's no way you could be that intimate with somebody without getting to know them, or I don't know, maybe not. Maybe they're so talented. I'll find out.
I would hope so. I'm assuming that Emma Thompson can have chemistry with a stick if she wants to.
Yes.
But he's great too. And I called him David at the beginning, and I'm going to have to fix that. Daryl McCormack, who I'd only seen in Peaky Blinders and who really I was not expecting this performance from him based on that role, but I guess that's just testament to how good he is.
I had actually never seen this actor before in my life. It was a total, so I had no expectations. I was talking to some people about the film because I was so obsessed with it. And one guy was saying, he's like, oh, but he's just like, I didn't really want to watch it because he's too good looking. And I was just like, oh, what is this guy? I thought that was really funny. Yes, that's definitely part of the capture. I was like, wow, this is a very good looking guy. Who is he? I'd never seen this actor before.
It's a good hook. It pulls people in.
They had 5 days to rehearse.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Really? All I knew was that they had they didn't bother with an intimacy coordinator, according to the production, which again I can sort of see.
I can see that too, because you just would do it with the director. Yeah, they would rehearse nude.
Really?
They had like a day of just, and yeah, wild. I don't know if I don't know if I could ever do that. That's why, and she's actually talking about a little bit about that too, that she doesn't think she could have done this at any age except for this, and that how important she thought it was to see untreated bodies at this age, because we're just so not used to seeing untreated bodies, which is just also so crazy with what, and even the poster, I love it. Like her, you know,
just the two of them sat in front of the bed. Yeah.
Yeah. And like her rules are hanging over. And it's like, yeah, I feel like so many actresses would have wanted that to be photoshopped, and she kept it. It's pretty, it's wild that is radical.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
Like being real is radical at this stage of the world. It's, it's very mind blowing.
Yeah, it's the phrase that comes to mind with most reviews is brave, right? When you say you're so brave to do that. And I guess part of that is because we know we're sitting and watching it on a 30-foot screen, and everybody always talks about how horrifying it is to see yourself, even if you're in decent shape, all you see are your flaws. But then there's this other thing that I realized, that there's another movie this year about a woman of roughly the same age sitting in a hotel room with a younger man who wants to give her everything she asks for. And it's George Miller's film, 3,000 Years of Longing. Because Tilda Swinton is, I think, the same age, which is shocking to me, because she hasn't aged. She's an immortal of some sort.
Yes.
But the way that Miller aestheticizes both of his leads, both Idris Elba and Tilda Swinton, like George Miller is making a fantasy, and this film is not that. This is sort of the counter argument to that, which is to say that your fantasy is unattainable and you can be happy in yourself, but that's the brave thing, not being naked, but being contented. And it's a hard sell. Like, it's hard to explain that to people about this movie. And the poster you mentioned is kind of reductive, right? Like, it looks like a sex comedy. And that's not what this is.
No, not at all. It's actually, yeah, it's a very profound movie about loving oneself. And yeah. But it's also really funny. Like
it's true.
I laughed many, many, many times. And I also found myself completely swept away. I really, one of the scenes I couldn't stop thinking about is the dance scene. I don't know what you thought of that. And I think it just, because there's that part too where Emma Thompson's character is talking about, like, she doesn't want to be 16. That was like the worst time of your, nobody wants to be 16 again, but you just want to like feel 16 again. And for a moment, watching the movie during the dance scene, I felt all of a sudden like, I don't know, really lifted. Like, it reminded me of being young and free and no COVID times, and having, just freedom all of a sudden. And it's so, even though the film is being almost hyper real, it also offered so much escapism and adventure, which I think is a very, very difficult thing to pull off in a hotel room, just with two actors, one camera. It's yeah.
Well, yeah, I was going to say the limitations sort of go away in that moment. There's the scene, yes. There's her reminiscence of being 20 and her only other sexual experience beyond her husband, where like, it's just such a simple monologue, but because it's Emma Thompson and because it's well written, it's transportive. I was thinking this, the the little bit in Citizen Kane, like I've thought about that girl every month for my entire life. It's just got that quiet confidence that this is a story worth telling and that this is an anecdote worth listening to the end. And of course you've got McCormack giving back. Like he doesn't say a word, but he's just coaxing her to keep going. He's asking her to go on with his eyes, and his body language changes. It's just so smart about how it tells that story, and who these people are to each other.
And also just so heartbreaking, like all these opportunities that this woman has not allowed herself to live because of all these restrictions that she and like religion is touched upon, and just how women and girls were supposed to act, like everything. She's denied herself so much. And then, confronting maybe mortality for, because her husband died, and realizing like, I can't, you reach this breaking point where you can't continue to live the way that you've been living. And, like this is it. This is your one life. This is all, it's all you're getting. Better start enjoying it.
Yeah. I was so terrified the first time that it was just going to turn out that she was dying and this was her thing, because.
Oh, really?
It's just such an easy place to go out on, right? Like it would be the big hook. And I think I was trying to figure out, actually, is this because I can't believe, am I a Nancy? Do I believe no one would want to spend an afternoon or an evening with a sex worker if they didn't have some sort of ulterior motive? Am I taking on her position? Is this a moral judgment on my part? Or am I just trying to see my way through the trick that it's playing on me because I'm invested and therefore it's going to betray me? Like I'm trying to figure out if that's like a film critic's mentality. It's like, okay, how are you going to ruin this? But I don't know. I think it would feel like a more, and I've seen a couple of movies where that's happened, where that's like the secret is that someone's dying because it's an easy secret. It's an easy writer's trick to get out of to invest your film with emotional weight.
Or raise the stakes. Yeah. Yeah. I never thought once that she was dying. That's really wild that entered your mind.
You're just more generous than I am, I think.
Maybe. Or I could just, maybe it felt, I don't know, like, it felt, I think maybe something that's been on my mind, it's like turning points in one's life, and what are those things that make you all of a sudden not necessarily hit rock bottom, but just decide I am no longer going to accept the way that I have been living, and I'm making the active, like, even like as painful as it is for her, like she resists the whole way. But yet, even like Leo points it out, you made all the arrangements, like you rented this hotel, you booked a sex worker, you did all of these steps. So it's like, you clearly want it, but then that's like the inside of you, like that conflict of knowing like, no, this is so wrong. But then the other side of you that is like, but I absolutely have to do this. This is a thing that I have to do. Like it kind of felt like completely different, but kind of the same. I mean, that's often how I felt about directing for the first time, that I was like, I do not want to do this. I don't want to do this. I'm going to resist but I know that this is something that I have to do if I want all these things that in my life, like this is this thing that I have to, you have to dive. And it's almost like making those micro tears in order to get the things that you want in your life, even though it's incredibly uncomfortable and difficult and painful. Ultimately, your inner voice, like deep down inside, knows that is the way to go. So that's why I didn't think she was dying. I think I could relate to it.
Fair enough. It's a kind of a potentially awkward question, so forgive me, but is that why you went with Leanne as your star? Did you want to do it in a way that made you feel comfortable, or did you just?
Well, no, Leanne was attached before I was. Leanne, I think, has been attached for 8 years, I want to say. Like, Bill had been trying to get this film made for a really long time. And then he was looking to attach another actress. And so Leanne had suggested me, and I think actually one of his other collaborators had also suggested me. So then he was like, okay, well, I've got to meet Vanessa. But he knew about my series Ghost BFF, and he also knew about this other series I had made, The Bitter End, where it was based off an improv show I used to do. And when we first met, like this was years ago, pre-COVID, he had originally approached me just to act in it. And I had felt that I was aging out of that part, and I wasn't sure if I wanted to do it. And then after talking, he thought that I should be the one to direct it. And I was like, absolutely not. Like, no way. No. That is way too scary a thing. But then after talking with a lot of people, and also, I was looking for that next bold move after doing 2 seasons of a web series, like what is it that I want to do next? And then I said yes. And then we got, and then we got funded, and I was like, oh great, I actually have to do this. But having Leanne there was massive. I was actually gifted literally one of the most generous, wonderful casts that you could be given, because they were all so lovely. I was so intimidated by Ken, because, sometimes like older white men aren't, the nicest on set, especially people who have had that much success and experience. And he was the opposite. He was lovely and generous. And he was a hippie, and like rolled up in his car, and it had "Every Child Matters," like this flag hanging off. And I was like, okay, this is my people. I love him. He was so warm, and so generous, and supported me. And, all of, like, they all did. I feel very, very lucky. It felt very safe.
Oh, it's good. The film has I guess I asked about Leanne just because the film has a level of comfort. Like, it just feels easy. That
good.
It doesn't feel like, I mean, it's dealing with big emotional stuff, but the attitude is very relaxed and very comfortable, and it feels like everybody is at ease in front of the camera. I don't know how to describe it other than it's not naturalistic exactly, right? It feels designed that way. It feels like you're trying to be very inviting to the viewer into this thing. Maybe it's the black and white, maybe it's just the score has something to do with it, but just the sense that the world you've built is really comfortable. And so I got pulled into the questions that people are asking, because everybody seems like they're already pretty happy. So why shake it up? Why change it? It's sort of the opposite of the Leo Grande situation, where you've got people who could have comfortable, satisfying lives and are still considering throwing it all up in the air. It's kind of like Sarah Polley did that with Take This Waltz as well. Like, when you have to understand how happy everyone is until you understand why they're not fully content.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I mean, for me too, I think sometimes it's a bit more, because if something is awful, you understand completely why they would leave and why it would. But I think it's like, in not most relationships, but I think like a lot of relationships, it's like, it's good. It's good. And you still go and mess things up and make it messy, because we are never satisfied, and everything always has to, well, I think also you always wonder, what if? And so if you go and explore that, or if you don't, yeah. And also, like, as you get older, like, I think it's interesting with, the central relationship, like it is like, yes, Leanne is in a very good on paper marriage. Everything is fine, but it's not this other thing. And I think like even, I know that the writer Bill Robertson had like debated the ending many times. Like, does she actually leave? I don't want to spoil it.
No,
Please,
of course.
see the movie. But yes, there were different iterations of how it could end. So yeah, but I also did work really hard. I think like my experience as an actress being directed by both wonderful directors and horrible directors, like I definitely worked very hard to make sure my actors were extremely comfortable. Like I didn't want anybody to ever feel like they couldn't take a risk, or like that they couldn't be vulnerable, or they couldn't feel comfortable in front of the camera, because I've been put in that situation many times where it's like, oh no, I want to go hide. And I didn't want anybody to feel that way. I wanted everyone to have a lot of fun playing. Like I wanted the experience of making this to be wonderful. On top of having hopefully like an okay movie.
That's the goal though. Right? I mean, isn't that like the platonic ideal of a film, is that just like Leo Grande, it's something that could have just been this one thing, but it's got so much more going for it.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, yeah. I don't know if I understand the question.
You feel like you're resisting the praise. Just the idea that you've made a movie that has, like, it's more than it's some of its parts. It's trying to be, it's aiming to be more than some of its parts. And mostly when that happens, it feels like a miracle. Like when
Yes, it literally feels like a miracle that this film got made. It feels like a miracle. I think sometimes that people don't understand how hard it is to make a film. If you're not in the industry, it's like people are just consuming things. There's so much on TV. Oh, just watch this, throw it away, watch it. And nobody, especially like Canadian indie stuff, you're working with very limited resources. It's not like you can just throw money at a situation like you do. Like every single person on that set has to be working at such a level and such a creative level in order to pull this off, because it's a modern miracle when things get made. It's wild. It's wild.
My thanks to Vanessa Matsui, whose first feature, Midnight at the Paradise, has its Toronto premiere this Friday, April 21st, at the Paradise Cinema. You can still get tickets at paradiseonbloor.com. Thanks also to Nicola Pender. She knows what she did. You can find Vanessa on Twitter at Vanessa Matsui, all one word. And you can find Good Luck to You, Leo Grande streaming on Prime Video in Canada and Hulu in the US. It's also for rental or sale on various VOD platforms. As always, you can find me on Twitter at Norm Wilner, and you can find this podcast there at Semcast, S-E-M-Cast, and on the web at someoneelsesmovie.com. The first year of the show is still available for just $20 at payhip.com/Semcast. That's the first 52 episodes of Someone Else's Movie, 44 of which aren't currently available anywhere else. And check out my newsletter, Shiny Things, at shiny-things.ghost.io. I think you'll enjoy it. Our theme song is by The Last Year. If you like it, or the show in general, please say so. Leave a review wherever you've been listening. Every little bit helps. It truly does. And check out the other shows on the Frequency Podcast Network while you're doing that. Stay safe, watch movies, wear a mask if you go out, get your booster when you can. I'll see you next week.